Well, I think that, for the purposes of the law and Constitution, where we are now is most accurately described as preliminary to a judicial proceeding. And that judicial proceeding is a potential impeachment. And I say that because, what we ask of the Constitution is, what's the function of how we describe something? And right now, the most important thing is to obtain the grand jury material, to see the evidence. And the standard the court has set, that we have really set for the court, is, are we preliminary to a potential impeachment? And I believe that we are. Where we'll get to an impeachment, at least in my view, where we should get to the decision, okay, let's indict the president, let's impeach the president, is if we're convinced that we can make the case. And here, okay, there's no making the case to the cult of the president's personality that is the Senate GOP, but we should at least be able to make the case to the American people. And I'd like to see the evidence, so I'm confident that we can do that before we say we're ready to charge the President of the United States.
As you know, that is unsatisfactory to some who think you guys have been too slow. Andrew Sullivan writes this week in New York Magazine. Pelosi has set an extraordinary precedent that clear evidence meticulously collected that a president has committed what she calls crimes against the Constitution does not constitute sufficient grounds for impeachment, even when those crimes were designed to cover up an alliance with a foreign power. If more than that is needed, the impeachment power has effectively been nullified. This gets to the argument that says, regardless of what you think the outcome is in the Senate, that you're setting a bad precedent by not, if you believe these are impeachable offenses, you're setting a bad precedent if you don't do it.
Well, look, there is, I think, great weight to the argument that this is the strongest form of censure that we have, and if we don't use it, what message does that send to the next generation? I worry equally, though, Chuck, about the message of taking an impeachment case to trial, losing that case, having the president acquitted, and then having an adjudication that this conduct is not impeachable. So there's not a simple answer here, but the jury that I'm most worried about, not the Senate, because I think that's a preordained conclusion, is the American people. Can we make the case to the American people? And I want to make sure that that's true before we go down this path, because it's going to occupy a year of the nation's time, and I want to make sure that's the right decision.
Is there a moment where it's too late, calendar-wise? And how close are we?
Well, here's the thing, Chuck. That is, in a constitutional sense, also, justice delayed is justice denied. They are doing everything they can to obstruct the congressional investigation, having obstructed justice. So there may get to a point in the fall where we decide, look, he is violating a different provision of the Constitution by obstructing the Congress in its lawful and constitutional duty. That would not be a crime, that would be a misdemeanor. And the founders had a different idea of what misdemeanor meant. It's not a lesser crime, but it's misdemeaning in office. And I think violating the separation of powers would be such a misdemeanor. So this is why I say the president is doing everything he can to push us into an impeachment, because if we can't get adequate answers from the court in time, that in itself will be an impeachable offense.
Well, you didn't really answer it, so you don't want there to be a deadline, is what you're saying. I guess is that fair
Chuck,
to say?
I'm saying there will be a deadline, because we will either get the answers that we need, or the president's obstruction will be so complete that that itself becomes the grounds for his impeachment.
Okay, Chairman Schiff, I will leave it there. Democrat from California, Chairman of the Intel Committee. Thank you for coming on and sharing your views.